Hey, how's it going? Um, Hold on, I'm being all obsessive about the big floof on the side of me that I find distracting at least. Hi to my palm. Hey, how's it going? So, I wanted to talk about the prospect of leaving USA while it's in this period of hold on a second. Speaking of this period, which I didn't actually say, extreme capitalism is what I was meant to say. Is that low enough? Probably not. But it's pretty low. Usually I can't hear whatever people are talking about is so loud in their videos that they're so concerned about, so I'm just gonna hope that that's low. So, yeah, the prospect of leaving USA because of the administration, the incoming administration, presidential, to be clear. Not everything America just rolls off of everyone's brain. Like, it's just not in there because, you know, because why should it be? They're not here. It's not essential information for them to know. Which kind of goes to my point at a point. So I was thinking about it and, like, yeah, I mean, of course I would like to go someplace where you just know there's health care and you, like, okay, hold on. It just feels like it's getting louder. Just stop it, could you? Thanks for the blessing, but can you bless quietly? So, I mean, you're not just going there like you're going to like some free visit house. You are going to be expected to contribute as well. And so if you had tax issues, you know, you probably don't want to be in one of those countries that has the socialized medicine or national medicine care, or however you land. I don't know where people want to go. Someplace nicer than here is right now, presumably. And by nicer, I just mean that maybe you don't have people screaming and yelling at you about how they want to take away, like, people's, you know, means of having indoor housing and such. And there's just a real kind of nasty, I want to take everything everyone else has, I don't even know, element to these guys that have now just, you know, gentrified the government with all of their wealthiness. Like, even if they're not wealthy, many of them are, you know, they have some wealthy guy's hand up their butt and they're directed by these people. It's like you can't even go into government anymore without being compromised by that crap. Like, don't forget other countries, because they want you too. But, you know, the they that I'm talking about are corporate entities, you know, like the Koch brothers. I don't think there's a Koch by that name in anywhere in the government, but they don't all of the relatives in that family don't necessarily have that name, and they might be a paid operative. I mean, that's how it's gotten the way it is, where, you know, regardless of what they say before going in, something happens to the politicians, to a lot of them. And it reminds me of what I've learned about how other countries choose who to lean on and make a spy. Like, I can't help but think that right now, during these congressional hearings, or Senate hearings, whatever, with the legislators, for, you know, I'm not even sure what's happening. Like, I don't know what to call it. They question these people that Trump wanted to just appoint, but there's a procedure where they have to be vetted, and they have to have a security clearance, and it has to be determined if they're going to be competent to do these jobs, which is, it's crazy because a lot of the people that Trump's appointed have no history in the field, and they're being given the leadership of whole departments. It is crazy. I mean, I feel like if G.I. Joe characters were real, he'd be appointing them to head the military. Ah, it's crazy. But, it's not written in stone, like, and also, not to blanket the situation with it just being completely that way. There's lots of people that are in there that are doing, like, I'm imagined, really hard work to do things the way they ought to be done so that they work the way that our system is set up for them to work. But they're fighting a battle, you know. Like, even, I don't know if there was a time where there was not always, like, some shadowy crow waiting in the background. I'm thinking Heckle and Jekyll for some reason, waiting in the background to, like, lean on someone and say, look, we have this information about you that, you know, could compromise you because honey traps. Look it up if you don't know. And just also, people are gamblers and they get in a bad spot, and sometimes they get saved by our government, Kavanaugh, or sometimes they are leaned on by other governments to come in and disrupt and, you know, screw things up for us, or like make something, like work real hard on getting an embargo or something lifted or a sanction. But I think mainly there's just a lot of bad feelings toward America from other countries, and people just want to get back at us and break down this country from the inside. And that, I think, is the reason why there are so many attempts to just remake everything, like suspend the Constitution and get rid of the FBI. All of those things would cause complete chaos here. Like, who would that benefit? How would that help the situation here to do any of those things? Because, you know, I don't hear are replacements or contingency plans. That's not the goal. The goal is destruction. If you haven't noticed, if it's crossed your mind that it might be what's going on, trust your instincts, because it's like just fully demonstrated in front of us right now. And I see a weak link they're trying to put on the head of the Department of, not military, the DOD, I guess. A guy that's a total alcoholic that wrecked his own organizations, that is talking crap about women in the military. And I would imagine from what he said that he has a mindset about what women should be as women and what they should be doing as women. And I don't know what world he's ever lived in where any of this was the case, but that dude is ripe for the picking if he hasn't been already, and he might get confirmed. So, like, personally, yeah, the idea of leaving sounds great, but the actuality of leaving sounds very difficult. I don't even have a passport, so I don't even know. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't have one. You got to have one to get out of here. And then who's going to let you in? And then once you get there, how do you know it's not going to turn into something else? Like, take South Korea. Like, South Korea, for a long time, it inexplicably existed where it is. Like, I don't know if you've seen where it is on a map or thought about it, but it's like China's on one side, North Korea's on the other side. Across the water, there's Japan a little bit away, but they're pretty small too. And then on the other side of North Korea, just looming there, is Russia. It's like, oh my gosh. It gives me palpitations even thinking about the proximity of all of that. And then their government recently, I don't know if you've been keeping track, holy crap, if you've watched that Chris Norland guy that I've talked about, he actually lives in South Korea now. Their leader, maybe a month ago, went all Trumpy, or maybe he had been, and he'd even like got some of the population to go along with that. And then he tried to pull a coup, and it was unsuccessful. I guess there's a history of the government just fighting with itself to be conservative, don't be conservative. And then there's a full influence campaign from China. I think I'm watching 3 people, Asian people, talking about China. The ones that talk about China that are from China, of course, left China because I don't think they could be saying what they're saying and it actually getting out of China to where I am obviously not in China. Somehow I'm able to get what they're recording and putting on YouTube, so I don't think they're still in China. There's a lot of angles on what they're saying. Like, some of them are talking about financial stuff. Some of them are talking about what's happening with the people. They're all talking about all of it. And there's a lot of what's happening there. There's like the class disparity, just like in a lot of other places. Yeah, I mean, you could go someplace else from America and be looking for balmier, calmier climes, but good luck. You might get somewhere and it just be all dandy and hunky-dory and sunshine and rainbows, and then all next thing you know, the next guy elected turns into like a fascist, and you're like, oh crap, now what do I do? Like, the infrastructure for you to leave and go someplace else, the whole situation might have changed like overnight. Like, you don't know what's going on fully, because they like to not tell you stuff for national security and for our own good, is what I hear. Like, we're all children, and we're not all children. You know, like, the not telling us stuff, I think, has been detrimental in a lot of ways, and it probably is contributing to some of the stuff that's happening here in USA, because people, like, I'll go back to the politicians where I started. They go in saying one thing, and then they get in, and do they do the stuff that they talked about? Do they ever revisit what they talked about? I mean, some people do have a complete turnaround immediately, which then makes you think, okay, well, were they just BS the whole time, and was their whole plan to get in and pretend to be one way and then get in and be like the real terrible way that no one wanted? Like, if they knew that about you, they would not have voted for you. If you know stuff, like, if people want you to do stuff, you know, or want you to back them up and help them, you know, get ahead, and you're going to do this altruistic thing because you care about who's representing you in the government, you know, you want them to follow through on what they said, especially if you sent them money. Nothing like sending people money and like spending like enough to buy 6 gross of stickers, right? And then them getting in there and it being like, okay, business as usual, not gonna change a dang thing, sorry, haha. Hate that. Like, that has happened so many times. But you know what, switching to the other side, that for me has never been an option. Now it really isn't. And I have to say, like, I'm not officially affiliated with anybody anymore. I do vote on the left because, for instance, right now, they're not Trump. But I don't want anybody but Trump. I hate it when people say, vote for anybody but no, not anybody, because it could be like that balmy, welcoming, calm nation you go to where all you got all the bells and whistles and the mod comes, and then poo, overnight it turns into poo. You know, it's like all of a sudden not what you thought it was going to be. So those are a lot of reasons why I'm just going to stay here. I mean, it would be hard. Like, I'd have to save and scrimp for a few months, like, seriously, before I could go. And boy, I would really need to get on that if, you know, these people get in there. I mean, I guess I should say when, because it's done, but I don't like all this talk about taking away my, I mean, they take away Social Security, they got another homeless person on the street, you know, because it's my whole deal, like, depends on that, and it's not what I want to hear from people in the government, especially when they don't want people laying around on the street. It's like, at some point, you know, look, if I could be working like I used to, I would. I don't want to be like dependent on this in this way. It's very stressful if you don't know. So, and I know reassurances, but it's a whole new world. Things are real different. Anyway, I pulled some cards from the Shaman's Dream Oracle, and while I was shuffling, man, this card really wanted to come out, so it was Cosmic Womb, number 6, the Divine Feminine. Well, that has meaning for me on many levels, because it is what is needed right now in the world on the mass scale for males and females, because males have a feminine side, and when you honor that side, you bring out your divine feminine and you enhance it if you allow it to be and give it room to speak and advise you. It can be helpful in a lot of ways, especially if you're a male and you're like clenched up and locked up in some constricting identity that men are a very, I mean, I know that they're having problems. They're also very confusing to me right now. It's like they hate women, but they want women, but they hate women, but they love women. But get out of here, women. But I need my mom to help me get into the head of the DOD job. What? Isn't that crazy? So, the people that want to support that, mostly male in our government, I don't know if you've noticed, mostly Caucasian male, they got a set of beliefs, they got a way of being, like a lot of them in the government. And women are not high on their scorecards. They're just like, we shouldn't even be voting or in military helping out or having jobs. And they say that, I don't know if they're thinking about all of the ways that happens where men are not involved at all. It's not even a lesbian thing for people to get all freaked out about. It's a single mom thing. It's a father died in the war thing, or a father drank his liver to death thing. You know, I mean, there's so many instances and situations where women just are part of what's holding the fabric of society together. And it's crazy that you want to like come in and say, don't do this and don't do that. And it's like, do you realize if those things were not happening, what also would not be happening? Anyway, withholding comment, and boy do I have them. So I'm just gonna let you get a look at this picture that's on here. To me, it's sort of heart-shaped, but it also sort of reminds me of an energy torus, Torus. It is a donut-shaped energy form. You can totally look that up if what I'm saying sounds nutty. Where is my... Why didn't I have that ready before I started doing this? I'm looking for my stylus, my indicator. Man, come on. It can only be like right here. Oh, there it is. So yeah, the torus thing, like, if you see this sort of round shape, if you look at it from a sort of left to right sort of look, you can see like lines going sort of in at the top and then also at the bottom. It seems to be doing a similar thing. And through that center is sort of like the eye of the energy hurricane. It's not a hurricane shape. It's like a similar though, because a hurricane or a tornado also has an opening at its top and bottom. Well, I don't know about. Never mind. Don't get too involved in all of that. But it also reminds me for some reason of the carriage in Cinderella. And maybe it's like the pumpkin hour or something, because you can't really see. Or maybe like it's when like Cinderella goes in all ash girl and, you know, holes in her clothes and whatever, and the transformation takes place inside of the carriage, and she comes out all gussied up, the princess, and you know the Cinderella story. She's like all popular at the ball, and yeah, I don't know what that has to do with this. Maybe it'll mean something to somebody else, but it's like I don't know why this the transformation chamber, like the energy area, and it's out of sight. Oh, that's interesting. I'm just gonna put that aside for now. So number 6, remember that 6. On the tarot card of the number 6, no, that's the number 2 I'm thinking of. It's not like the number 8 where if you turn it on your side it's infinity, and it's not like the 2 of Pentacles where the figure on the card is juggling, but it is like representative of, I guess, 2 states of being. And I don't know why that's important, but to do with this card, 2 states of being, and whatever happens in the middle here. So, I mean, that could just go along with what I've been wanting to talk about, which is not leaving the U.S., because what can you do, really, if you leave? You can do more here on the ground, certainly, than you can from somewhere else, that's for sure. And I mean, hey, I understand it's like a protective sort of mechanism, but I mean, I want to be protected too, but I feel like I can't leave if there's someone like me or in a worse condition, and like they're kind of powerless to do stuff without everybody else backing them up. So I don't know, like I feel like I don't want to leave. I feel like I want to stay and try to add to you know, maintaining some type of stability, because the other thing that keeps coming to mind when I think about this is like trying to walk around in Inception. Like, the scene is constantly changing, you know, situation is completely fluid. You know, like Trump said, he can't be sure of tomorrow, although that's kind of dumb, because you can be sure of tomorrow. I mean, I feel like if there was some reason the sun would not come up, science would have some warning about it, you know, because that's pretty big. Like, I don't even know what could stop that, except for, you know, lights out for the person that was looking at sun up, you know. Like, it's the most inevitable thing I can think of. So the next card I pulled is number 4 with Caterpillar. And if you've been watching this, you will know that I love cats, but you will also know that I don't love this card. I mean, the card itself is fine, but anyway, it's caterpillar. You can see, not spelled really the, well, I guess it is spelled the traditional way. Never mind, it's spelled right. And then you see the subtitle there is opportunity. Well, see, she's covered in smoke, and I feel like a lot of what happens in the government and with people trying to influence society, it's done with a lot of smoke and mirrors. You're given the impression that it's one thing, and it looks like pink is a pleasing color. You feel like you have nothing to fear from pink. And also in the bottom there, you can see it looks like there's lavender, which lavender smells nice and it's known for relaxing, but it's almost like it'll make you relax and start talking pillow talk or something, you know, like make you forget yourself. But back to the spy hunting. So eyes, notice on the body there's all these eyes, and they're sort of like decorative, like, oh, it's part of that wrap she's wearing. If that's a she, I don't even know if that's a she. Isn't that interesting? But hidden eyes looking when you don't think eyes are looking at you. So that makes me think of like listening devices and cameras, and we can't say there's not a lot of that going on in the world. I mean, I feel like that says it all, but, and also, like, who wants to live like that? But that's kind of like what the world is becoming, because the people in charge, for some reason, even though they're the ones doing all kinds of untoward things, and like the president that's about to be inaugurated on the 20th here in USA is a felon of 34 counts of crimes, and you know, he's been running from it and hiding from it and using, I was president, I'm going to be president, I am president, for the excuse to not take responsibility for absolute stuff that is a crime on the book. But the people that write the books and tell us which of the books to enforce are just like, whatever, just do it. And I heard something a while ago, and when I say I heard something, it's something I saw here on like YouTube or something on my phone, and it was having to do with the sort of things that happen at a diddy party, to be honest. And I'm sure Epstein too, because Diddy's supposed to have been some kind of FBI operative, I don't know what. He's so enthusiastic in his area of work, but so was Epstein. He was rumored to be the same thing for Mossad. So smoke and mirrors and eyes, little cameras and little recorders. I doubt that it was very, like, I'm sure there were recordings at Epstein properties too. So, and what they're recording, there's a record of it, but you don't hear anything about it. It's just like, okay, we have it, now we can use it to compromise you. And that is what I heard, is like a lot of ways that politicians get turned, basically. Like like I said, they may go look like they're going in there saying one thing, and maybe there are ones that even before they get in are singled out and pressured to become traitors, basically. So, and you got to expect it in a government. Like, that's just the way it happens. Excuse me, I think I have a burp that doesn't know if it wants to come or not. Please excuse me. This conversation is giving me gas. So the next card I pulled was a number 20, and it's Feast of Plenty. Choices and their consequences. Choices and their consequences. Well, I guess we're seeing how those are playing out. I'm more thinking about the choices of the people I was just talking about, like the politicians and the people that are politician adjacent these days that have a lot more influence than a consultant should be having on anything more than like a movie. Especially when, like, you can't be an expert on something you don't know anything about, you know? And if all you know about it is coming from one area of the conversation, then you're not going to have a full understanding of what the issue is about. And I feel like that's so many of our politicians. I feel like they run, and their adjacent friends are run on so much emotional like preference and ideology, and it's like, this is not the place for that. They're trying to make it into that. Like, the government is not supposed to have all of this opinion, and like, I don't feel like doing it that way. Like, that's not supposed to be a part of it. Like, if you can't adhere to the way the things are run, you shouldn't be in there. And yet we have all of these people that are like that in there, and it's a shared experience, everything that's going on, and so everyone has to participate in their way. And we may think, oh, well, I know I feel this way and that way, but I'm not saying that you don't. I don't doubt you. I just wonder if you understand, like, the stakes and why they are how they are, and like what we do does make so much difference. Even when it comes down to something as small as making a decision, as voting, because it isn't small. It's not just you voting for what you want. It's you also then negating the other votes that other people wanted for things. But it's that weird dichotomy between the left and the right, where the left is all, I want what I want, and the left, a lot of it is like, well, I want what we want. So it makes a difference. Two swords, two sides, fighting it out. I see there's a crystal breaking out of the top there, and it's leaning one way, and if I look at it, you know, on the camera, the crystal is sort of pointing toward the left, but if you look at the thing in hand, it's on the right, like when you reverse the image. But that's kind of like what I was talking about. Like, you're voting this one way, and you're thinking one thing is going to happen. And if I were to present it to someone on the right, my theory that you're voting for I as opposed to we, I don't know. I have not had that conversation. I just wonder, would they understand what I was saying? That, like, if you vote for this thing this way, you're going to cut a bunch of other people out. And if you're aware of that, what is your justification? Like, how do you feel okay with that? Is it they're this, that, or the other thing, race thing, so they deserve it because they're ruining stuff for you? I've never understood that part either. Like, please explain to me how people are ruining stuff for other people. Like, that just seems like a choice. I don't know. Like I said, I've never had that discussion because I don't want to try to have a sensible discussion with somebody who I think already believes nonsense. I'm not going to go in all hostile, but I am going to have that. And then I have had conversations with people like that, and it does pretty much instantly devolve into, you're a nigger, like I don't have a mirror. Like, that person I'm not going to get anywhere with. Not that day. So, anyway, again, big white amorphous area where it's a crystal ball, but where you would seek the future. I don't know about you, but it remains to be seen because it's unclear for me right now, this picture. Also the future. Um, I always finish these and then I'm like, oh, I should have talked about this and I should have talked about that, and then it's over and done with, so I just have to believe that whatever I said was enough. And what I'm not saying is that there's a bee on here and there are things I could say about, like, the bee, good or bad. Like, okay, I'll just say the bee is part of a hive mind, and that is a sort of alien and weird concept for us as humans. As individuals, we are not Borg. I am Borg. And bees kind of fall apart without their routine, without their queen. And it's not a queen, I don't think, in the sense of like human royalty. It's more of like a biological thing, and each one makes something happen. Each one is part of a key to the creation of the honey, the site of where more bees are made, the nursery. Like, there's a whole system. Bees have a lot going on. But they represent something that are admirable that we could learn from. If we don't like the idea of being Borg, then we can be individual bees, but we can learn from what they're doing. I mean, we kind of elect to do that when we punch in and out of our time clocks or whatever. So, okay, on to the next card. Number 3 is Benefactor, and the subtitle is Grace and Generosity. So, these are, as you can see, little rodents, I think mice, and there's a little rodent king. King of his little mousedom with his mouse queen. And I don't know how I never noticed this before, but so they're floating on their little happiness crown or mushroom cap, and they're aglow with happiness and contentment, and all while I can't believe I never noticed this before, curled on the stem of their mushroom life, of their happiness, or beneath it, is a snake. Is that not a snake eye right there? A little snake head, little snake mouth. I don't know how I didn't coil scales. Look at that. How did I never notice that snake was there? So the number 3 in numerology is the number representing spirit, or the creator, or God, or source, however you refer to it. Oh, please say I have of course I don't have a clean one. Okay, it's okay, it only has food on it. 3 represents God, spirit, and so Benefactor, that it would be the protector, the giver of life, the giver of happiness and abundance. And then down below, as in myth and lore, is the representation of the underworld, and the snake is the devil, even though that's actually not quite right when you got your theology on point. But it is the year of the snake. It just turned that, so we have this association with this beast, and then we know that things are happening out of sight often, like underground is where things could happen out of sight that we're unaware of, which is interesting because I just left a message or a post on Blue Sky today talking about how I had seen Sterling, Psychic Medium, that's the name of his YouTube channel, talking about how China is spending a lot of money on infrastructure for climate change, like for underground. And luckily there's already like caverns that are already, have been, I don't know how they've been delved out, but they're carved out down there, and they're doing work to be able to support the population when it becomes unlivable above ground. which would make a lot of sense because, like I was talking about earlier, or I wrote something that I'm not going to read here. I'm going to spare you that. But one thing I talked about was how I've been watching several Asian people, either expats from China. Well, no, they're all expats from China because you can't talk about China the way they are, and you can't do that in China. China will not release it to the rest of the world. So since I'm not in China and I've seen it, they are obviously not also in China. But they have family there, they have friends there, they visit, and there's reporting coming out of there that kind of defies what the CCP is putting out. And not unlike our country, not unlike many countries, like no country can accuse any other country of doing something that they all are not doing. Like everybody's all spying on each other. Everybody's doing kind of dirt to each other and not depending, depending on the circumstances at the time. It's just the way it is. So I guess this is just saying it's always all good. It can always be that way. That is really up to us to sort of live that vibration. But always there's the opposite end of the pole. There's like you're up top feeling all high, then you're down here, and generally like a snake is not a good name for people to call you. You're going to do something underhanded, like out of sight, like, no one saw that coming, that snake. Luckily, our snakes are doing a lot of stuff, like, right out in public, like, loud, like, they're kind of, like, not the smartest snakes out there. Saying the quiet part out loud, keep doing that. We need your help with that. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. So next card is number 8, Crown Games. Right use of power. Well, that's why you stay, right? You got to keep your hands around the crown that's trying to go nuts with all of the power and glory, in which, how glorious is it when you're assigning it to yourself? It's like, I always feel kind of sorry for people that give themselves a nickname, because the cool thing about having a nickname is that somebody else gave it to you. It's not the same when you name yourself. I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way. It's just kind of like, come on, I'm cool, like me. And I don't even want to say the name, but we have a couple of people out there. Like, honestly, many of these guys out there vying for power and attention in the White House are so thirsty. And it's like, they come across so insecure, so lame-o. And it's like, my gosh, you have everything. Why do you still need anything? Like, what is up with you? You leave no oxygen in the room for anybody else. You gotta have all the attention and everybody's gotta think you're cool. That is like, maybe it's cooler if you don't care what people think and weren't trying so hard. You ever heard that? Like, there's a phrase called the stink of desperation, and it means if you have that smell, people don't want nothing to do with you. You have to have noticed, person that I'm referring to, that people react to you this way. So instead of keeping on doing the things that are scaring and running people off, hey, try something different. Just stop doing that and see what else comes up. Like, try a different tack, So, yeah, I feel like that's the kind of climate we're in, the kind of situation that we're in. And with all of the power and granditude of themselves, they still need all kinds of help. Like, they still need all the people to make their businesses run and continue to make them money, and they still need like the people to do the cool and smart funny things that are entertaining and make the movies. And it can be done without all of this interference at every stop, like this gatekeeper business and these power games where like maybe you just weren't the cool kid, but you found yourself in a position of power and you're just like, well, I'm going to let you succeed a little bit on your grand talent that's raking in all of the dollars and the love and the attention that I'm not getting, by the way. So I'm going to take like most of your money. Like that kind of attitude. It's like, that's not even yours to have. Like, you are cashing in. How do you cash it in? But like, how do you go to sleep? You didn't even have any part in that. Like, you knew a person that had a studio that could film or record the artist. That's not you doing anything but like, passing a word. That's not a talent. Everybody has to do that all day, every day. So people have to learn boundaries, learn like control is for ourselves. I think like keep that to yourself. Don't be trying to control me and my anything, my output, my goal, my inspiration, my light. Like go get your own. And by the way, don't buy it. Like if that might be your problem. If everything that you have is something you purchased, understand that's not a real thing. A real thing is something you dreamt up and then went out and did, like yourself. Like maybe you wrote something down or you painted a picture or you photographed something. But when you go out and collect all of the other people's work and product of their ambition, all you did was buy something that somebody else did. I don't know why I'm going off on that so much, but apparently I do know that a lot of the people that I'm vaguely talking about are Sun City, and at least one of them and more that are not Sun City are people that have made their wealth because they attained the talent or creative output of someone else and are calling it their own. Like buying a building that somebody else put up and slapping your name on it, it's like, and then misrepresenting what that was to inflate your ego. So much so that people have to come in and hold that down. But right use of power, it has to be reasserted, and if you're not here to do it, then the people that come in from elsewhere, regardless of the circumstances, whether if they entered legally or not, hypocritically, and are still able to obtain and partake of the wealth and opportunity here to the degree that it's hurting the other people that were already here. Like, we don't need to be repeating the whole beginning of this country where the colonizers came in. And by the way, like, we're hip to that now. the first wave and all the waves that came after. Homies don't want to play that, bro. So right use of power needs to be reasserted, and you do have to be here to do it. And the final card that I pulled was number 12, Dragon Horde. And you see, the subtitle is Protecting the Future. Well, that's what I'm talking about. A horde and a dragon together sound like a fairy tale where there's a hoard of treasure that a dragon is protecting for some reason. You never hear the story about the dragon going out and acquiring any of this. So it makes me think the dragon came in and probably roasted whoever hoard it was, whoever would have been protecting it, and is now just taking it for their own. And doesn't that just sound like what I was just talking about? So number 12, I don't know which mode of, maybe it's numerology, but 12 often refers to mirroring, like if you're talking twin flame stuff and the 12 is talking about the twins mirroring each other's behavior. So in this case, I think it's more like what I was talking about, where the people that have come in and are sort of infiltrating to either take over, well, not either, they want to take over, they want to feed on the United States, they want to take it for everything it's got for themselves. And so that's another way of hoarding. And these dragons have come in and they want to like take over everything and change the way things are here. Like, you come from Sun City, you come from a place where they want to like exclude or cancel, in their phraseology, cancel the people that were there in the first place, and were not immigrants to the country like most of these people are. Like, if you're Dutch, you're from Dutchland. Sorry, let me get I know the actual name of it. Netherlands. So, there were indigenous people there ahead of you that you came in and just slew to appropriate their treasure. And that's happened there over and over. So they also, in that country, continent, but the country of South Africa, since we're talking about that, oh, sorry, I meant Sun City, is notorious for the white population using and abusing the indigenous black population. They want to edge them out of everything. And this, the thing that's happening here, where they want to reenact like the Civil War and the black civil rights, they want to remove. Same thing is happening there. Like, they had the moment where apartheid was fought off, and then it's seeping back in like nasty sewage. And the indigenous black fishermen were like being edged out of their territories to where they could fish, and they were making laws and doing all kinds of things to just make it impossible for them to like live on or near the water so that they could do the work that their families have done for generations. It's just horrible. They just come in and just start ripping stuff out with no concern for, feedback, splashback. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. People are not just powerless and ignorant and meek so much anymore. Like, people have had enough, and they want right use of power. And apparently people are going to have to go in, the little people are going to have to go in and uproot all this sort of invasive shrubbery, invasive foliage and fauna that has come in. And it's like, where do you get off, by the way? Like, who do you think you are? And you're gonna repopulate. One of them wants to repopulate the world. Nah. Anyway, so protecting the future. I have said that this little seahorse dealing, it looks like there's a pregnancy thing going on here, but it's actually the curl of its tail. But pregnancy, you're thinking of a life that's going to come to be in the future, or a way of life in this situation, because these guys wanting to come in and like change the whole government and like start rerouting where tax money goes and like taking it away from people in need that are receiving it because they're in need. Like, it's one of the most transparent and altruistic things the government does, is to provide for the infirm and the unwell and, you know, too young, like whatever it is that whatever it is that's causing the individual to be unable, you know, to care for themselves. Then that is taking care of a bunch of problems that you have a problem with. Why would you remove like lifelines and life's blood to people and create more of the problems you claim so to dislike? It's like they don't think stuff through. Like, you can't, where are you gonna bus? You can't bus all of the people that are homeless all the time, because it sounds like you want to create like a constant trolley system for these people, which no one wants to do anything for them except run them out of town to the next place where they're gonna get run out of town. They need to be somewhere where people with nothing have access to things they need. It's like, think, smart people. You're supposed to be so smart. Use the thinking machine you have in the think box and try and like get it off the me setting for 5 seconds if you can, and get it on the we setting, because you have so much, you have the capacity to have so much more. Why so stingy? Why act like, why believe in stuff that you don't even know to be true? Like, you know, believing in stuff that is just made up. People hate to claim to hate made up stories. What are you for? Made up stories? Anyway, you don't like those. You don't like them when they're not true. Well, stop making them up then. Stop doing the thing you don't like. Stop being the thing you claim not to like. I don't understand why everything has to be so intrusive. Why you gotta know everything? Like, you know what I would like to know about you? Nothing. I would like you to go away. The more I know, the less I want to know. That is how people get along. You give each other some dang space. You don't like move in on their territory constantly. You don't have to say every word that comes into your head. You know? Let people wonder. Be mysterious. People like that. You want people to like you? Learn a thing or two from popular people. Just saying. I did not realize this until Friday, I guess, or yeah, I think it was Friday that I saw this piece of news. Evidently, one of the Sun Cities never could get along well with people. Always was that way. And maybe they can't have self-awareness, but I think it's not true. I think you can always be self-aware if you apply yourself. That is not hard. That does not require years of schooling and accreditation. It requires a 12. It requires a mirror. You need to look at yourself. And I don't know. I think it's time for actually not even mirroring, like not even looking at yourself. I think it really, what that deeply means is like to go inside and look at yourself and be brave. Like, you're gonna find things in there that you don't like about yourself, because that's where we lock that stuff away and hide it. But when you're having problems, well, I know this person is having both success and problems, because that's kind of how life is. But they're having some serious problems, and they could sort of bleed through onto the other people, which would be, I mean, if it can bleed through, then you probably are in trouble. But choices lead us to these places where we find ourselves succeeding or in trouble. And it's really the thing that is the most protection, I think, is to sort of widen the scope from I to we, to be grateful for what you have, even if you feel like everything is terrible and it's the worst time ever. You learn to turn things to see them differently. You learn to view them with a different perspective. And then you begin to see, like, oh, this is how I can learn from this. Like, even if it's the most horrible way to feel in the moment, you already know from experience that later on, something from that thing that may make you feel terrible for years will one day just say, ding, oh my God, like, that now that makes sense why that happened in that way. Because if that didn't happen then, and then blah 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 in the middle, and this thing happened now, none of it would have made sense. But now it does. It's like, then you understand. I'm just giving you an example. Like, I don't know, it could work. It could work any way for any different person. At any rate, am I doing on time here? Oh, okay, I went longer than I meant to. Anyway, I plan to stay, and I don't know. Now you know. Thank you and good night.